Colin Riley, and I'm here to tell you about my frame saw. Let me see, Hyper Kitten, Josh Clark's site, where he had a plan for making a frame saw to resaw wood. And that was really, the only material I had on hand was 1-inch dowels that was like long enough and suitable for the project. I took these dowels and I started making the frame. I did like cut mortises and tenons with my little Japanese back saw here. They turned out, you know, tight and stable and everything like that, but I didn't really worry about making this part flush to here, but I wanted to give it plenty of surface area to adhere and everything like that. And I did an okay job, but it's really hard on a round dowel. It's frankly a miracle that the thing is flat and square. Only on the fourth piece did it occur to me to nail a board to one side so I'd have a square working surface. Other than that, I just clamped it in the vise and then just tried to eyeball, you know, a 90-degree cut and made these mortise and tenon. After I made this frame here, I took some Doug fir 2x4s, and because in Josh's model, what he did is he was working with square lumber, of course, like most normal people, and then he just cut a small kerf into the frame here on the stretcher to stabilize the blade. Me with the round one and just kind of being nervous about the width of the material and everything like that, I just took a 2x4 and then took a paddle bit and drilled the hole through with 1-inch paddle bit, and then I cut the block in half and then put it one on each side. And this was really tight fitting even without glue. So I just put glue on there and clamped it, and I don't think it's going anywhere. So I cut a slot in there, and then I drilled a hole just as straight as I could for a 90-degree hole through here where I was going to put the tensioning hardware. And then as far as the tensioning hardware went, I followed Josh's plan pretty much exactly. I took a bolt here and I clamped it in my vise, and then I took a rasp and made a flat surface on one side, and then I took actually what I did next is I drilled the hole next. I went over on my drill press and I just drilled a small hole in there. And the key on that, make sure you have steel that is soft enough. If it's just not cutting at all, either with a hacksaw or with a drill, then your steel is too hard. They make bolts that'll not be quite so hard. But you also have to use oil, cutting oil. And just take a little material. When it starts to smoke, make sure you put some oil on there, cut it through. It goes pretty easy. And I recommend cutting it while the bolt is solid instead of when it has a slot in it. I don't think it really matters. Josh, the way he did it was he cut the slot first and then he drilled it. But I did it with the bolt solid, and then I proceeded to go and cut the slot down the middle. Now, what I did for the slot, I put it in there. I took a Dremel tool and scored the top with a cutoff wheel, and then I took my hacksaw and drilled down the, you know, and sawed down the length of the bolt, you know, so it went about to the end of this kerf. And then I drilled a hole in here straight as I could, and then, you know, put the tensioning hardware in, and I started looking for a bandsaw blade that was like maybe 3 to 5 teeth per inch, something that was like a really good rip, a very efficient kind of a cut, and then of course it'd be a nice thin kerf with the bandsaw blade. So I went to the local hardware store. They didn't have any, and they don't sell bandsaw blades. Then I went to Gnall Lumber. They don't sell any, but I asked them if they had any used blade because they do some milling and cutting there on site, and they said no, we don't do that, but the guy who sharpens them and takes them for sharpening comes on Thursdays, and you might come and talk to him or something like that. And but I told the guy, I said, well, what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to make this certain kind of saw for resawing, and I need a blade approximately 24 inches long that would have a really good, you know, rip kind of tooth count, like 3 to 5 teeth per inch, something like that. And he said, you know, we have 2 blades that are behind the counter that someone had brought in for sharpening or special ordered or something like that that had been there for over a year, and he went back and got them, and this was the blade. And it's I don't know, it's either 4 or 5 teeth per inch depending on how they measure it out. I measured it with my steel rule and it was that, but I just, you know, the second I saw it I said that's perfect. And then I brought the blade home and I cut it off with a metal cutting wheel to length on my chop saw, and then stuck it in here. In the tensioning hardware here, the cut was too narrow, so I took my Dremel tool and cleaned it out, widened the slot a little bit with the cutoff wheel. Got to make sure that you wear eye protection with those if you don't know, because those little cutoff wheels will go flying when they break apart, and they always break apart. So I cleaned it out, made the slot wider, and then I put it in there, and then I just made little pins for the tensioning hardware out of the wire on a binder clip. I just snipped them off, and then once I got it in there, bent it with a pair of pliers, and then the tensioning hardware is holding these with these little pins. I just put it where I kind of put it to the ground to make it the same on both sides, and it's good to go. I mean, I made this thing, and when I'm not storing, I'm kind of suspect about the species of wood and the thickness of the wood and everything like that. It seems stable when I tension it, but I just leave it untensioned when I'm storing it. But then when I tension it, I just tension it here. It doesn't seem to really bow or anything. It's nice and tight. And then I'll show you how it works here. Put it tight in the vise. So, nice little starter curve. Just back up. Okay. Alright. Set it to cut on the push stroke. Stand square to it with the saw level. Turn the material over. So, I have a resawn board here. So, my technique leaves something to be desired, and I have a lot to learn, you know, with practice, but I can tell you that it's a great tool, and it works a lot better than the tools I had before.